Hi, my name is Natalie, and welcome to part 3 of the Brian's Saga Reading Challenge, also known as the Hatchet Reading Challenge, part 4, this time talking about Brian's return. In this video, I'll be talking mostly about Brian's return, but also be doing a check-in to see how the challenge is going. As you probably saw, I just made another video about the third book of the series. I finished Brian's return in December, but I'm only getting around to making a video now, and I'm really sorry about that, but hopefully you all will forgive me, and hopefully you all are doing well in the challenge. This book, more so than the others, I found to be very intriguing in one specific way. In the last video, I talked a lot about how in Brian's winter, there was a little bit about the human person, but I started talking a little bit about Brian's return as well, in that book is really about the human person. And here is why. In Brian's return, there is parts where he is learning more about what it is to go back into society, and he realizes that it's hard for him, who's been out in the wilderness, to go back to a society that is so focused on the materialistic elements of the world and is focused on things such as TV and radio and music and who likes who in class and all of this other just what he thinks to be really stupid and really boring stuff. He lived through this crazy time in the woods and he somehow survived, and he just can't seem to fit back into society. This is different from the river, and if you remember from the last video where I was talking about how this is not necessarily a series, even though I have called it the Hatchet series, it is more of a saga in that it talks about different aspects that could have happened with Brian. In this book, it's morally a continuation of Brian's winter, but it does include elements from the river, mostly about the canoe that he received from the man that he was in the woods with and he was teaching. I find it interesting that this book is kind of a continuation of both, since both of those couldn't have happened at the same time. The way that Gary Paulsen was able to kind of go through this, he talked a lot about in the acknowledgments and how he wanted to keep writing more Brian because that's what people wanted, but because he had written all these different spin-off, basically, timelines, he wanted to somehow combine it all, and so he did by making this book, which I find to be just very fascinating, that an author can go from like one plot line to another plot line and then combine the two plot lines, and even though it's not perfect, it somehow made this great best-selling book, and I just think that's really cool. If you guys think that's cool, awesome. Please let me know in the comments. But anyway, that's a whole separate thing. Basically, this book, like I said, is more fixated on Brian's human character, kind of similar to how the river was, kind of similar to how Brian's winter was, but more so the river. And that, Brian is adjusting back to his life in New York and trying to get used to it, but he can't. So he goes out into the woods and decides that's his home. And I think that's a big decision for any human person to make, but ultimately it's the right one for Brian. And he learns all this stuff about the world that you wouldn't get if you were just cloistered to your normal life and all of these things that seem so important but really are not. And those are all those materialistic things I was talking about that he doesn't want to hold on to. He wants to explore, see the beauty that there is, see sunrises, see the world as it was created and meant to be, and I find that to be quite beautiful. I know that myself, I've tried to write some scenes about nature and how touching it can be, and even though I feel like I've done a fairly good job, there's no just comparing to how Gary Paulsen describes these kinds of things. I've seen it done in other books, but never the way that he makes you feel like you're living or trying to understand Brian's mind. And Brian's mind is key to this book in that he's all by himself for the most of it, except for the beginning. And he's trying to figure out what he wants from the world. And that is a very human thing. We have to figure out what our purpose is and what we're made for. And that is what he decides he's ultimately made for, is to live in the woods and to see the world as it was created. And that's a really beautiful thing. And to see his growth and to see his person in this book, I really enjoyed. And I, like I said in the last video, really like to read the acknowledgements now. And the acknowledgements of this book were, I thought, phenomenal. I loved how Gary Paulsen told us his story and really described how different aspects of the book actually happened to him. It's not that common that you see an author lay it all out for you and basically say, this is almost nonfiction, but not quite. Most of the time they're like, oh, we enjoy this aspect, or this might have been slightly inspired by this person. You know, usually you see thank you to this person, thank you to that person. His acknowledgements are a little different in that he doesn't do that. He wrote this giant, long, maybe 3 or 4 page acknowledgement, which is pretty long for an acknowledgement, about how this happened to him in his life, and he didn't actually know that many people, and how he's literally typing this on his computer on a pier to go in a ship. And that's really interesting. I find that he's very much like secluded from the world, yet so in tuned to the world, and that he's not that tuned to people, so he doesn't have a lot of people in his life that he talks to, but that he has this great ability to see the world as it was meant to be. And that is a really powerful thing to be able to see and to have. And even though he didn't have the easiest childhood, and a lot of the things in the book are really sad, and I would not wish that on anyone, I think it ultimately made him the great writer that he was, to be able to see the world as it was and share it with us. And I think that's where his success came from. And I think that's why people enjoy his work so much. And to see that and to really come to understand him, I feel is what I was trying to propose in this challenge. I keep saying that, but I hope that's true. I hope you all are coming to know Gary Paulsen in a way that you probably didn't before. You might have read Hatchet when you were younger and just kind of threw it out the window, like, oh, this was a good book, or some of you may have hated it. But hopefully now you're starting to see that the author behind the book is also a really good thing to know about, and to really come to understand the people that you're reading about. If you would like me to talk about any other authors ever, please let me know, and I will try to do my best to disclose the information about them. Of course, this is a memoriam type of challenge in that we're trying to honor someone's work and honor what they've given us, and I feel like Gary Paulsen has given us a really great gift. But if there's a living author that you'd like me to talk about, or another challenge you'd like me to propose, go for it. Please let me know. I'd love to hear about it, but I of course want to hear how this challenge is going, and perhaps maybe how Gary Paulsen touched you, or perhaps something you learned about him that you'd like to share. I would really like to hear anything that anyone has read about him or heard about him. I just think that he's a really good and prolific author. I mean, he won a Newbery Medal for a reason, so I feel like we should, kind of honor that and kind of get to know more about him, since now he's died and passed away, and just kind of remember that he did give us a gift, and that gift is in his writing. And hopefully that we can take that and give meaning to our own lives through something that he gave us. That's ultimately what writing is supposed to do, is help us to see something about ourselves and about the world. And I feel like you can get a lot of that from Gary Paulsen. So if you have anything you'd like to share about that, please let me know. Please also, if you have any book recommendations, please share them in the comments below. And like I said, if you have any challenges that you'd like me to talk about, or any authors, please let me know about that as well. I hope you all are having a great day and progressing well through the challenge, and I'll hopefully see you soon.